like going back to like mid 70s, it took 18 hours of work to get 1 unit of the S&P 500, get 1 share of SPY on average, right? You work about 17, 18 hours. So was that like a couple days, 2 days, 2.5 days, and you could buy 1 share of the S&P 500. Now that number is 212. That's the degree to which the stock
Wow.
market,
Wait,
yeah.
what? That is so much higher than I thought.
Yeah, so the stock market's outperformed the average hourly wage by 1,269% since 1981. And even just going back to like say 2008, for 2008, right? Like 2007, even since then it's outperformed by 150%. You know, you went from taking 2.5 days of work, right, to buy 1 share of SPY to 200. What is that? That's like 5 weeks of work. So this is that uphill battle, right? It's like financial assets are running away from people. It could be home prices, gold, could be the stock market. All of these things are appreciating at faster rates than the wage. And not only that, but then your wage is underperforming the money supply. So it gets just compounded. The problem just compounds on itself when you have running faster than GDP, and then you have wages running slower than GDP and slower than the money supply. If people aren't saving in gold or the stock market or Bitcoin or whatever it is, something that is outperforming currency debasement, their wages are like dramatically underperforming currency debasement and inflation. So that's how you get the K-shaped economy. Is everyone who owns assets, they're fine. They're the upper leg. And everyone who works for a living and doesn't own assets, their wages, I mean, you can see it. You can see the K, so yeah, it's pretty unfortunate, to be honest, the situation that we've got ourselves in.
That is one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. And so this is something is this what people have talked about with you? Like this particular graph, is that like a very specific thing people have, talked to you about and got your thoughts on? Because that might be the craziest thing I've quite literally ever seen on a chart. I mean, that difference is crazy. 2 days worth of work buys you a share of the stocks of the stock market. And today it's 200 days of work. What?
17, 18 hours. So that's like about 2 days of work.
Yeah.
Now it's 212 hours. So divide by 8
hours. Okay.
Yeah,
got
212
it.
hours.
Okay. That makes sense.
It's still a lot, right?
Yeah.
It's still a lot. Yeah. So thinking about, you have to understand like what is your hurdle rate? And so on a nominal basis, like all sorts of things, personal income, average hourly wage, all sorts of things are going to look like everything's fine. You have to realize, okay, but it's denominated in this like failing unit of account, the dollar. So you have to start adjusting for failure of the underlying denominator by denominating in gold, denominating in the money supply. You have to kind of really, take it a layer or two deeper, because if you just go off of the like headline nominal number, it paints this picture that everything's fine. But total wages as a share of M2 money supply. And by the way, it's the same story if you do it as a share of GDP. It's the same general story, unfortunately. So here's as a share of GDP. So back in the 70s, total wages based off the average hourly wage of non-supervisory employees, you add all of their wages up given year. This equated to about 48% of American GDP. Now that number's 32%. So, you're also underperforming GDP as well. So the uphill battle, the degree to which the average American faces an uphill battle is pretty hard to understate. And I think this is why you see so much angst and disaffection and anger and rage and populism, and especially with the young people, right? Because like I was told, just work really hard. So I worked really hard for like 16 years at this in a given industry, right? Like I picked an industry. It was recession proof. I was looking for my first job as Lehman Brothers was failing.
Were you?
And it was like, I don't know, like a month or two, I think, after Lehman Brothers failed. That was when I was entering the job market. And, like the boomer said, just, work really hard. And so, okay, I found this industry. I found this kind of sector within healthcare, and I just did it, and I never called out, and I always said yes to overtime, and I always tried to have, be in a good mood and show my boss that I was a good worker, right? And I did the whole thing, and I climbed the corporate ladder 16 years, eventually got to that like top role, right? Like as a director of a department in that field. And like I blink, right, from 2021 to 2023, during that time period, I'm making like, basically 6 figures. And I go from being able to afford a home in one of the kind of shittier suburbs of LA to like, wait, what? I have to triple I have to make $300,000 to qualify on that same house that I was just looking at. And so, yeah, you do that to young people, they're gonna be
Mm,
pissed off. You do this to the average American, they're gonna be pissed off. And this is part of why you see like the suicide rate, the
yeah.
deaths of despair are double the rate that they were during the Great Depression. Suicide rate is hasn't been this high since the Great Depression. This is why you see all that stuff. This is why you see mass shootings and all the horrible like political like mass violence sort of stuff. It's at the end of the day, you do this for decades upon decades upon decades to people, and yeah, you get a pretty pissed off populace that is gonna vote for populists, whether it be on the right wing or the left wing. Right now we have a right wing populist, but it can go the other way too. Seeing in New York, it's a direct response to this. Like,
Yeah.
this chart, like, this is like all you really need to know. Total wages as a share of GDP versus the degree to which financial assets, and therefore the top 1% who own all those financial assets, the degree to which those people have outperformed your average hourly wage. I mean, it's like I could show dozens of charts that illustrate the same concept, but it's all the same thing. You have financial assets. The only things that have outperformed GDP, certainly not wages, right? Is certainly not like the average American, which is in green here, right? That person has been underperforming GDP. And so like, consumer spending is a large portion of the American economy. So you think, okay, well, like if the average American is falling further and further behind, if that old middle class that used to exist, I don't know, 3 or 4 decades ago, that middle class that kind of built America, if they are getting poorer and poorer and poorer and their wealth is shrinking and shrinking, what is coming in to prop up the economy? Like something
Yep.
has to be outperforming GDP. And the things that are outperforming GDP, government debt, government spending, and of course, financial assets. Also, corporate profits are outperforming GDP as well.